Today we've got a lovely Yeti SB150 in for service, and I want to make a video about this because there's loads of little intricacies here if you're going to get one of these service of stuff to look out for. Now, initially this bike came into us and the customer said, oh, there's a little bit of play in the back. I think it's just one of the bearings. Would you mind having a look? When we start taking things apart, we discover an awful lot more than that. And I want to try and talk you through it because this is one of those cases where one little thing that you've not got on top of can lead to an awful lot of other things happening down the line, which end up being very costly. So what we first of all did was just starting to take out things like the infinity link. Now, the Yeti use an infinity link which fits in here. And the idea of this is the main pivot and this can float. Now, we thought it was just these two bearings that are the problem. And if we take a closer look at these, you should see that bearing just move like that. And on this side, it's probably a little bit more obvious. Now, that seems like quite a small amount of movement here, but multiply that out across the entire swing arm and it's actually end up quite a bit. Now, the other problem with this is this infinity link is really worn. So let me show you here. So this is how this moves. You can see this is actually pitted. I can get my fingernails in there. It's all scored up here and down here as well. Now, these infinity links, you can actually use a needle grease gun to keep on top of greasing these, but conveniently, this one is actually hidden behind the frame. So you end up removing quite a lot of frame parts to get to these. Now, the big problem with this is you think there's not an awful lot of movement, but you can feel it here. And if I sort of exaggerate the movement like this, I think you can clearly see all of that movement there. It's been wobbling around in your frame. So definitely not cool. Now, these come in two varieties. This is the cheaper one of the two at 290 quid. And they do a Kasima sort of coated version for 320. So it's like a £30 upgrade for an already very expensive piece of kit. Now, so that's one major problem. What I like to do when we're doing a pivot bearing job like this is to get all the pivot bearings out and normally replace everything, because the biggest cost in all of this is actually labour time, really, and removing all these bearings carefully. So if you're going to get your bike down to this level, you might as well just replace the bearings while you're there. The bearing kit for a Yeti is about 45 quid, small in comparison to the labour time of removing them. So all of these bearings on the Yetis all have little lips to them as well. So you have to be fairly careful looking at these. So these are two that are quite worn out. So let me just get a zoom in. You can see that movement there. And they just sound rough. The second you try to turn these, they sound appalling. So both of these are awful. Good news though is the actual pivots themselves are fantastic. What we're looking for is evidence of any under rotation, so scoring or mark or anything, but that actually looks really, really clean. So good news, pivot bolts are in good nick. And that goes across the board. All the pivot bolts are in really good nick. Loctite's intact. All of these look excellent. So that's a really, really good news. The other bearings actually are okay. They could probably just be cleaned up. They're a little bit rough, but we could reuse them. But like I say, for the small amount of cost in replacing these is nothing compared to stripping the whole bike back down again in a few months' time and redoing them. So as a policy, we just do them verbatim and just get it done. One of the biggest problems of all this movement is it transfers onto your shock. And you can just see here how we're starting to get wear marks just around here. This is really, really faint, but you can just see where the anodizing is just starting to change colour here. Now, this can be down to a couple of things. One, there could just be a build-up of dirt underneath these air seals, or there could just be a little bit of play in there as well. Now, this particular customer is very, very lucky because we just went down to Fox for a staff training day, and as we did, we thought, well, do you know what? If we're going to be taking shocks apart, we might as well take shocks apart from people who've got bikes in for service right now. So we took this down and said, took this to Fox, and they, well, you'll see it. We're going to make a video about our entire day at Fox. It was a really, really fascinating day. But they stripped all this down, replaced all the seals free of charge, and upgraded them to the factory spec adjusters as well. So this now has high and low speed compression, high and low speed rebound built into it, and of course the very cool orange adjusters. So very, very lucky. Happened to be a complete coincidence, but that has probably saved them a good pretty penny. Because the thing with these shocks is that you can't just do an air can service like you can normal shocks. The second that you take apart an X2, you're taking apart the whole thing. There's no such thing as just an air can service. To get to these seals here, the whole thing has to come apart and be bled and pressurized, etc. You'll see that in the full video that we did with Fox. So very, very lucky indeed. When it comes to the bottom bracket, they did not get away so lightly. So I think what's happened here is the rider's been feeling a little bit of play, and as a result, they've just been tightening the preload to try and get rid of that play. And what's happened is we have a real mess here. So this is their shaft. So here on the non-drive side, there is actually so much bearing wear. This is almost straight here, but this is probably 0.5 millimeters difference here. So this is almost where the bearing is completely seized and it's just been rotating against here. Even on the drive side, we can see lots of under rotation. So we could change the bottom bracket, but this is never ever going to be running smoothly. It's always going to have some play in it. So this is landfill. This is just going to go straight into the bin, which is a real shame. The thing is, when we spoke to this customer, like, what's the best long-term solution? See, this has PF41 bottom bracket going to a dub axle. And as we've talked about this on the channel before, but it means that the actual room for some bearings is very, very small. So you don't end up with a very good solution. So this 29mm axle on a 41mm shell, you can just see there's hardly anything. If I took this apart, you'd see very, very small bearings, which just aren't durable enough for like riding in this sort of muddy stuff that we have here. So long term, since we have to replace this and we have to replace this, we're going to go for a more long term solution. So we're going to go for the RaceFace cinch system, which is a 24mm steel axle. They have it in stock. It's relatively affordable, and it comes with a sort of a direct mount chain rings as well. So I haven't got them here yet. We are desperately trying to wait for them to arrive, so we haven't got time to do the rebuild on this video. But I think that long term, if you run PF41 and a dub for a mountain bike, probably want to consider a different option, because this is never going to be a great solution. It has been made worse by the fact that this bottom bracket is significantly undersized, and when you're dealing with such fine tolerances, that does make a difference. So we did just get our 40.85. This is like the bare minimum size, and really this only just fits in, not quite the whole way. Ideally, this should actually be 40.95, and this is a 40.95, and that has no chance of going in at all. The fact that this bottom bracket shell is undersized and this has very, very little tolerance has definitely not helped this problem. So we are going to tidy this up for this customer. We want to make sure this is a really good, long-term, durable solution. So as you can see, a fairly large repair bill going on here from what started off as just a little bit of play in the back wheel, but I think it's definitely worth doing it. So more of the story is, I'd love to show you all putting back together, but all that sort of stuff is in the post. We're on quite a tight time scale to get this back out ready for the weekend. Oh, before we wind this video up, I know you guys love tools. So just to show you the tools that we use to remove all these bearings, we have this press kit here, which is pretty useful. This actually did most of the stuff. So this involves all the drifts and presses that we need. So we have a receiving cup like this that comes over the bearing, and then we use this as the drift, and this bolt comes through. So the bearing would sit in here and would drift the bearing into this receiver cup, and then these parts are pushing them back in. These are quite good when we're dealing with metal components and we've got nice flat edges to work with. These work really, really well. And like carbon frames or really weird, like uneven surfaces, and we're really, really worried about the paintwork. We also have this drift set from Alt, and this is just full of beautifully made ABS plastic drifts and cups and receivers. There is literally every size of drift in there possible. So yeah, we've got 101 solutions of removing bearings as carefully as we possibly can. You will not find a hammer and a drift anywhere in our workshop for doing this sort of job. We've got more than enough bearing drifts for removing them nice and carefully. Okay, last thing is we cleaned up all of this in the Sonic Cleaner. The Sonic Cleaner is awesome for doing suspension pivots. It really does help clean up all of these little parts here and get them absolutely pristinely clean, so that when the bearings do arrive, we can just put everything back together, assemble it, and make it absolutely perfect. Okay, as it turns out, we actually do have the time to show you the reassembly because our supplier Silverfish have been absolute superstars and managed to get us everything sent ahead of schedule, which is amazing. So first thing we're going to do is, of course, get the Yeti manual. Yeti actually have all their torque settings on a table rather than printed on the side, so it's really important to get the manual. It also tells you all the right greases to use in all the right places, so that's definitely an essential part. We have gone for the upgraded Switch Infinity. That's what that should look like from new. Now, this is the one with the Kasima coating. So this is meant to be a hard anodized process. So it's meant to be more resistant to that wear and scratching. It's also hollow for weight savings. When you get these, they don't always come fully filled with grease. So you are going to need the Yeti injection Switch Infinity grease thing. And this is really important, especially if you're a Yeti owner. Definitely invest in one of these. They're not actually that expensive. I want to say about 25 quid or so. So we've done that already. We've prepped this. We know that's good to go. We've also got all the bearings. I'm going to show you how we press in bearings. And we have a RaceFace crankset. So I'm going to show you a much more durable solution to this PF41 on a mountain bike with a 24mm axle. Right, let's go. Get started. We need to press in some of these bearings. So Yeti bearings actually have this little raised section here, which makes it really difficult to get a bearing kit on it. So you need to get an overbearing kit, which won't interfere with that. So we have a little 18mm drift here that will fit over this, and we can press this in. Okay, pivots in, shocks in, that's all sorted. Let's turn our attention to this bottom bracket. Now, as you saw, we've already reamed this out to 40.98, cleaned it all out, looking good. And we know that our test gauge fits in there nicely as well. Happy with that. Now, we're going to be fitting a RaceFace bottom bracket because we're fitting a RaceFace crankset. Now, this is an aluminium shell going into a carbon frame, and the instructions from RaceFace are actually really good. It says on here, first of all, that the dimensions should be 41 to 40.95. So dimensions are clearly written in here. If your frame is out of spec, take this back to your supplier and say, oi, out of spec, sort it out. It also says we need to use a grease, not an anti-seize, not a Loctite, but a grease. And also gives us instructions here. If your bottom bracket is oversized for any reason, it does actually give you instructions as to what retaining compound, etc. to use as well. So really good quality instructions from RaceFace. Happy with that. Now, the reason we're doing this and not going back to our SRAM system is because of these 24mm axles. And we are fitting a RaceFace crankset with a steel 24mm shaft. This should be considerably more durable for this sort of setup. So first of all, let's get this in. Look at that, smooth as you like. That's what we want. No forcing it at all. That was a nice smooth fit. Very, very happy with that. Should never ever be trying to fight putting a bottom bracket in. It should just be nice and smooth. It really doesn't need an awful lot of force. Forcing it, something is definitely wrong. It's time to get the calipers out and measure. So the RaceFace cinch system uses a little lock ring like this. Now, sadly, we can't stick with their pink design because it's just not in stock fast enough. So we've got this press steel one that'll do for now. And do you know what? I actually think that after they've got their little Fox orange update, they'll probably want to change their colour scheme to orange anyway. It's just my hunch. Definitely should do that. So this is all pre-greased, and it just uses a old style square taper tool to do this up. And it's pretty spicy if I remember. It is written on here 40 Newton meters. So soft clamps on the vise. Let's get that in there. Just dial in 40 Newton meters. There's a whole load of instructions that come with these about where all the various spaces and stuff should be. So follow the instructions. This comes in from the non-drive side. And there we go, spinning like a dream. I am very, very happy with how that has turned out. So moral of this story is high performance bikes, you have to look after them because and being meticulous, because all of the components that go into making an expensive bike are expensive. You really have to maintain them. And one little bit of play down here can start manifesting itself and end up with costing you a lot of money in other places. So please keep on top of your servicing, pay attention to all the torque specs, and happy riding. Hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and leave your comments down below. Till the next one, take it easy.